number involved. Now back in chapter 6, we saw the square root of negative numbers. So that was situations dealing with even roots of a negative number. Now remember, when we were talking about those, when we were taking even roots of negative numbers, the one thing that we did was we started by taking out an I. Remember, that I represents an imaginary number. So remember, if I had the square root of negative 81, I'd start by taking out an I, so that would make it positive. So it'd be I squared of 81, and square root of 81 is 9, so your answer would be 9I. Now that's if it's an even power root. What if it's an odd power root? That's what we're going to look at today. And actually for these, it's going to be really easy. When there's an odd root of a negative number, we're going to start by taking out a negative. And again, this is when we're dealing with an odd root. So here I look at this cubed root of negative 54, the cubed root, that's an odd root. So I'm going to start by saying, well, I know my answer is going to be negative. And now that's a positive 54. And so now we're going to take the cube root of 54, so we're going to do exactly what we've been doing. We're going to take and create a factor tree here. 54 breaks down to be 6 times 9. 6 breaks down to be 2 times 3. And 9 breaks down to be 3 times 3. So it's a cubed root, so for every 3 the same number, I take 1 out. So I have a set of 3 3's here, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to take out a 3. I'm left with a 2, so that 2 stays under the root. Remember not to forget that it's a cubed root, so don't change it to a square root. And remember, you should never leave a negative out or inside of a radical. That negative we should always put outside the radical. So your answer is negative 3 times the cube root of 2. If you forget with these to take the negative out, you're going to lose a point. So it's a full point for taking out a negative. Let's look at another one. Here I have the fifth root of negative 96, x to the 12th, y to the 15th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by taking out a negative. So my answer is going to be a negative answer. But now I need to simplify 96. 96, now it's positive 2, so don't look at that as being negative anymore. 96, well, I know that 3 would go into there. 3 goes into there 32 times. 3 is prime. 32 breaks down to be 4 times 8. 4 breaks down to be 2 times 2, and those are both prime. 8 breaks down to be 2 times 4. And 4 breaks down to be 2 times 2. So this is a fifth root. So for every 5 of the same number, I get to take 1 out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means my answer is going to be a negative 5. I'm left with a 3. So remember, we have a little gap there, and I'm going to fill that gap here with possibly an x and a y. So now, for the x's, this doesn't change. 5 goes into 12 2 times, so that means I'm going to take out 2 x's with the remainder of 2. 5 goes into 15 3 times evenly, so this is my answer. Negative 5 x squared y cubed times a fifth root of 3x squared. So why don't you guys take a second now and try this one on your own. So pause the video and hit play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so we should first recognize that our answer is going to be negative. So we have to, this is an odd root of a negative number, so we take out a negative. For 1,500, I'm going to break that up into 15 times 100. There's a lot of ways you could simplify this, but this would be probably the easiest. 15 breaks down to be 3 times 5. 10 breaks down to be 10 times 10. 10 breaks down to be 2 times 5, and those are prime. So for every, this is a cube root, for every 3 of the same number, I take 1 out. 1, 2, 3, 5, so I take out a 5. I'm left with 2 times 2 times 3, or 12 under the radical. And now let's go to the x and the y. 3 goes into 8 2 times. So 3 goes into 8 2 times with the remainder of 2. 3 goes into 7 2 times with the remainder of 1. And there's your answer. So that's all we're doing today. So that's the only new piece that we're adding to the puzzle, so to speak. Now we're adding negative numbers under the root, but the rest of the process is exactly what we've done in the previous lessons. So just remember, if you're dealing with an odd root of a negative number, we take out a negative, or what we learned about back in Chapter 6. If we have an even root of a negative number, we start by taking out an I. So with that, good luck on your assignment.